Hey, are you living according your personal values? Are you? That is my question to you. Enis. Because most people don't consciously define them. We talk about goals, we talk about productivity, but rarely about values. And recently I wrote them down. So what are personal values? Values are what drives you internally. They influence your decisions, they shape your behavior, they define what feels meaningful to you. It is also important to note that the order of your values are not fixed forever. They can change over time. And why did I write my personal values down? Well, there is a good question. I was reading Master Your Mindset from Michael Pilacic. It's this book. This is, by the way, not a book review. I read this book right now. In my mornings as part of my reading roadmap. You can also find about my reading roadmap in my videos on this channel. And I am self-aware and I want to live intentionally. The problem of not defining your values is that you may drift. You then have the risk of adopting values from social media, from the culture around you, from the workplace, and from the people around us. Let's now look at what I wrote down. Here are my 10 most important positive values. We see here values for growing and learning. We see values for independence and freedom. We see achievement and drive. We see creative expression and financial strength. Of course, I also wrote down my top 5 most important negative values. And these here are the things I strongly reject. If they show up in my life, it's a signal something is wrong. And this adds depth, because most people, they don't define anti-values, and that is interesting. With this list on paper, or actually in Obsidian, that is what I use to write down notes, I can then ask myself questions. Am I actually living according to these? Well, growing and learning, yes, I learn from my learning roadmap, the reading in the mornings, and also learn on the job a lot. The independence and freedom. Yes, I am currently financial independent. I can do what I want to do with that. Of course, always until a certain limit. In my job, I have my freedom in my job is also pretty high. Also, but that's always a limit. I could be more free if I don't have to work for this job, of course. If I had my own business, I would be more free. But that is not the point right now. Then achievement and drive. I think I'm successful. I could be more successful. I could have even more ambition. But at least I try to achieve it. And financially, I'm strong. And if we look at the negative values, I always try to take responsibility. Yeah, I don't like unnecessary delay, but for that I actually have a kind of a problem, because I like to take on new projects, and what I notice is that when I'm not yet done with a certain project, I often already start working on a new one, and that I don't like. But I also don't right now have a solution for that, except for not starting new projects. It's like playing video games. Because if you start with a video game and then a new game comes out you want to play, and you start playing a new game, the old game you don't finish. That I don't like. And that I do too much, and I will try to find a solution for that. I also don't like to be bored. Well, with my current projects like this YouTube channel, but also my creative projects and my day job and my reading and learning, I don't have time to be bored, so I'm really well in doing that. Frustration. I don't have the impression that I'm a lot frustrated. But if that happens, yeah, something is wrong. Lying, I also don't like. And in general, I don't lie, at least not on purpose. Does my daily schedule reflect growth? Yes, because in the morning, usually before breakfast, or if it's an off day, during my coffee in the morning, I read from my learning roadmap. And what that topic is, that will change over time. Because I read books like Atomic Habits and Indestructible that teach you about habits and how not to be distracted. But also in the morning, also I've read a book, Think Python. Well, not only reading, also that's a book you also need to do exercises, experiments with Python. So yeah, that definitely reflects growth, but also on the job, it also does. And does my job align with independence? For the most part, yes. Because I can decide what I do every day. That said, there are projects that I need to work on. Many of them I define myself in a IT and cybersecurity roadmap, but there are also tasks coming in every now and then. Does my creative work reflect creativity? Yes, I am really creative with my music projects, with my photography. Maybe not yet, but I want to try more and more with that. Then we also have books. Well, I don't really write books yet. Read them, but also at some point I want to write a novel. Do I avoid unnecessary delay? I want to avoid it, but as I said, with these projects that I start and then another thing comes and then I start that, I'm not really yet avoiding it. And sometimes I cannot do anything against it. Because if you read a book with exercises that you need to do in order to progress, you don't always have time to do these exercises right away. So then you need to schedule it, and yeah, then it can take some time before you do them. That's just one example. But with all these things, I'm learning to live more and more to my personal values. And because I wrote them down, it will get easier. At least that is what I hope. It is interesting, right? If your life doesn't match your values, you feel friction. And the friction it can become stress. It can become dissatisfaction and confusion. And clarity reduces that. This is also why I am not quiet quitting. Why I build slowly and why I structure my systems. And my values actually drive this quest. And yeah, my values will probably evolve. But writing them down, that gives me direction. And redirection reduces noise. Now, my question to you, have you written down your personal values? You can share them with me in the comments, because writing down these values, maybe that's something worth doing. Okay, this video was about personal values. What I also like is that you subscribe, that you give me a thumbs up, but it is not necessary. You don't need to do that. But I would definitely like it. And I hope to see you next time on Ari's Questlog.